Hi everyone, welcome. As you can see, I've got a bin over here, up on the bench, ready to go. And what I'm going to be giving them today is something that I've had around for a while. In fact, you can see the bag is nearing the empty point. I'm going to have to get myself some more. This is neem seed meal, and neem in general, I believe, is used as sort of a natural insecticide. The worms will eat this stuff right up. Insects, on the other hand, don't really like this stuff, so it's often used as a pesticide. Something I've been dealing with in this system down here is a whole bunch of springtails that I'd really like to try to reduce their numbers on, and I've got some other stuff here. I got some neem oil, and I've also got some cold pressed neem solution here, which I think is probably a lot better than that stuff in that pump bottle. And well, besides that, I've also got a little bit of coffee to feed these little guys. So why don't we get started on taking care of getting them fed. So during our last check-in, it sort of occurred to me after the fact that maybe a little drying in here would also be one way to get the number of springtails in here down. So it almost, I was tempted to come back in here and just maybe pull this plastic covering back a little bit to allow some of the system to dry a little bit, but I never did. So it's just the way we left it here 10 days ago. This thing over here is a coffee filter, something like what they're going to be given today. In fact, they're going to get two. And man, look at all the insects on there. That's ultimately what I'm trying to reduce. And they're all over the material down here in the feeding area. I bet you there's a whole bunch right beneath the surface over here too. Alright, so before we rebuild the feeding area, which is going to be not too exciting because just coffee and neem cake, and I guess some bedding to soak in some of that neem seed oil. Really quick, let's just check out how things on the opposite side of the system are looking. It was this side of the system that I thought might be best left uncovered by plastic. I thought maybe just drape out a piece of paper towel or any sort of paper, I guess, to just give it some cover, and then we can come back in without the plastic cover. That paper bag that covers the entire system can come back on as well on top of whatever we end up covering with over here. But I think just the lack of plastic covering will allow this stuff to dry out just a little bit more. Not that it would really necessarily need it, but I think just for the sake of seeing the material get depopulated of not just these springtails by becoming a little bit drier, but the worms will also generally start leaving the material too if the moisture level starts to drop off. So I think there's like a two-pronged benefit. We'll be able to hopefully see a reduction in the numbers of these insects, and at the same time we'll start getting the worms to gravitate towards the other end of the bin where we've been feeding. So we got to take a little peek in the material. Not too many worms hanging out there, which is kind of cool. Hopefully they're heading more towards the middle of the system. This is just weird. Some people are all about, I guess, the springtails. They're like, why bother the springtails? Leave them be. And I'm not trying to like eradicate them, 100% gone everywhere, whatever. It's just this one system where they've sort of expanded beyond the amount that was expected to ever be seen in a single system. Just a little bit too much for my liking. So it's really more of a personal preference thing, I think. I don't think they are causing any harm or bother to the worms necessarily. Pretty sure I've seen that question come up a number of times, and I'm fairly certain I answered correctly when I said that the springtails don't really become a problem for the worms. They're just another helper creature down in the system. Alright. As I've been kind of working my way across, you might have noticed I'm trying to get things up close to the rim if possible. That's just sort of part of this nudging over method. For, I guess since the system got put into this somewhat larger container 132 days ago. 132 days ago? 122 days ago now? I think it was 112 days, 10 days ago, so yeah. The system's now 234 days of age. 234. This will be feeding number 20, a somewhat unconventional feeding. Most feedings they would get just kitchen scraps, an assortment of different stuff. And today's feeding is more intended to try to help with treating the somewhat excessive amount of springtail activity we're seeing in here. Hopefully reducing their numbers. Good bit of moisture down on this side. So the plastic will be used to keep the moisture over on this end safe and sound, not letting it evaporate or anything like that. So this, what you might see as a bit excess moisture, might actually get absorbed a little bit by the prepared bedding that I've got here. Let me just see if I've got any worms on my hand. I don't think so, or well, maybe one or two. Generally want to try to not have any worms on my hand before I go reaching into here. And for that matter, I'm even wondering if reaching in here with all these springtails on my glove might be a bad idea too. That certainly does seem like a very likely way to spread creatures from one system to another. It's one thing if they're beneficial, but if they're something you'd prefer to see less of, then maybe just taking a little extra precaution there to keep clear of them. So yeah, what we had in here was just evidently leftover bits of, I think it was like those thick leaves at the base of the head of the cauliflower. Maybe some potato peel. I really breezed through the video rather quickly of what we gave them last time. This stuff has sort of that appearance of maybe pumpkin. I don't know. You can see there is little bits of leftover stuff in here. Not a whole lot, but they're going to have their little combination of stuff that they're already working on, as well as some stuff to back them up when they're done with that. So let's set that bedding aside and start coming in with this, I guess, somewhat boring from a color coordinated perspective. Not a whole lot of color going on with this feeding. It's somewhat mundane. And, a lot of times what I'm doing with the coffee in my worm bin feedings is I'm dressing it up a little bit to make it a little bit more interesting than just a big pile of nothing but coffee. So I've been going in there a little bit with my worm chow, and the worm chow itself already usually does include a little bit of the neem seed meal, but I think the neem seed meal is going to also be another major contributing ingredient here, with not only the purpose of giving them something they like to nibble on, but also hopefully creating a presence of something that might even help reduce the number of insects living in here. So it looks like pretty nice feeding. We just sort of turned it over now. Everything that was sort of mixed together is now just inverted. Maybe here would be just another good spot to sprinkle a little bit more of this stuff, a little bit more of the neem seed meal, and hopefully the worms do like it as much as they're claimed to like it, because most people will say that the worms definitely like that stuff. So at least that's what I've heard when people talk about putting it in their worm bins and watching the stuff pretty much vanish. So just trying to think of this cold pressed neem seed oil. I mean, I don't have a delivery mechanism. Seems like a shame. It would have been nice to maybe use the spray bottle. Maybe I should just pull the spray bottle out of the other bottle. I don't know, I bought that stuff and it didn't really seem to do anything, and then when I guess, I don't know, there was a period when I was trying all these different things to try to remedy the presence of mites in my systems, and trying neem. The whole presence of neem here in my wormery is because of that whole endeavor. I don't remember. I think it was ultimately attempt number 12 or 13 of all these different things I was trying, where I finally landed on just running my systems with a lot more bedding, and it seemed like that was the one thing that resulted in me seeing much fewer mites in all my systems. So you know what, before we cover up here, I like the idea of leaving things somewhat level. So I'm thinking that's a good excuse for us to just come back in here. A little bit more shredded paper cardboard mix. This has leaves in it as well. Pretty nice little prepared bedding. Give them just a little bit more, and that'll get us to that nice level point. This will obviously collapse a lot once the worms start digging into it, nibbling on that coffee and neem seed meal and worm chow mix. Now, sort of like what we did last time. Last time we left this system with a nice top coating of worm chow. So we sprinkled the entire top surface, and it did seem like the worms came out for it because there was nice castings all over the whole top surface when we first arrived in here. But rather than sprinkling the top surface with worm chow, this time we're going to do it with even more of the neem seed meal. Right onto the feeding zone indicator too. How does that sound? It's inescapable at this point. It's interesting the smell this stuff has. It almost makes me wonder, maybe even just putting a little bit of my worm chow in combination with that would make it even more irresistible. And, you know, as much as I would like to see stuff over here start drying off and leaving the cardboard withdrawn here, I am thinking that, you know, at this point, maybe we're just going to stick with that somewhat excessive amount of moisture. Not that it seemed excessive at all, for that matter. It was pretty good, actually. But the whole idea was that maybe we would try to scoop out some finished castings from that end at some point. But it's certainly not urgent, and I like the idea of the moisture in here just recirculating, getting all that stuff that we just placed in here over the top surface everywhere to be of interest of the creatures in the system. That includes the springtails, hopefully reducing their numbers by some. So I think I've got a few things I got to take care of getting put away and cleaned up, but I'm not going to waste your time with that. Before I go there really quick, let me just say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to let me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. All right, everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.